Hey guys, and welcome back to Rage Gaming. Today we're back to talk about Season 4 and leveling. There's been some big changes, both in the stats and the actual content we're going to be doing to level as effectively as possible. Overall, this is fantastic news because not only is it going to be more fun, but more importantly, it's faster. That's because XP rates are buffed across the board. Helltide alongside its rework will be available in World Tiers 1 and 2 now. It's easily the most effective way to level, roughly 30% faster than say the previous best method. Also, because there's no real new seasonal power, that part of a new season has been replaced by say the new itemization stuff, which will equate to, you know, a kind of seasonal power in any case. It's just things are going to be different this time. How do you level up as fast as possible in Season 4 then? That's what I'm outlining today. First up, let's highlight the big changes and things to know. To start with, those improved XP rates and how they've actually changed. World Tier 1 is unchanged and is essentially worthless. You will not play in it. World Tier 2 is the tier we're all going to begin in. It now increases the XP gain by 50% compared to its previous 20%. Pretty big increase for that sectional leveling. In World Tier 3, we're going to be getting 150% more XP, up from 100%, and in World Tier 4, it's now 250% compared to 200%. These are big increases and should massively cut down the raw time needed to reach level 100. Because of those changes, we start in World Tier 2, ignore World Tier 1, move to 3, and then 4 pretty much as soon as possible. Next, a major detail to be aware of is the new equipment level requirements. They're reduced as well. Now in World Tier 3, you'll be able to equip Sacred Gear at level 35. That is huge for your progression because Sacred Gear, while not ideal, is worth imprinting your important aspects onto for that big power boost. This can help push you into World Tier 4 sooner, which has also been changed. The Ancestral Gear from World Tier 4 now has a level requirement of 55, down from 60, which is another welcome update. I'm going to outline my advice for that. Just be aware that none of it really matters if you push the next tier and then start getting slammed while you're there. If you enter the next tier too early and end up losing XP because of it, that's not worth it. So again, I will explain this. On the topic of season theme though, and season power, it's pretty simple. The season theme is the Iron Wolves. There's actually no new seasonal power to think about. They went to the foundational issues in this season for loot in an ARPG and really improved them. That means we don't have like a bunch of new seasonal power content, which many do see as disappointing. It is disappointing, but it's also the pill we really need to swallow. D4 is built on this jank, unfinished, often poorly thought out foundation, and after season 3 where they did add a lot of new content that was interesting, it didn't matter. The game desperately needed a foundational improvement that we've been calling for since say pre-season. Stuff we thought would have been improved after the betas, it just wasn't. This is an important time for the game, and I do think this impact will be enough to change the gameplay loop to feel like new content, but we'll see. Having said that though, there's still a seasonal storyline to think about. It's absolutely not going to be a big deal, clearly. We're simply going to help the Iron Wolves out. They're a band of mercenaries that protect the people in sanctuaries. Some of them, though, have been mysteriously dying. So we're going to try and solve that, what's going on with them, help them generally, and working with them will reward tempering manuals. That's going to be important and worth engaging with. I expect these to become events or mechanics that overlap with content we're doing normally, like the Helltides, so it shouldn't be an overly important thing to think about in regards to your leveling path. So those are the main new things to think about. For leveling, here's what we actually do. Create your character on the seasonal realm, skip the campaign, claim your renown rewards as usual. With that, we set up our leveling build of choice and get going. Just be sure, whenever you can, grab some herbs so that you always have elixirs for that 5% increase to your XP active. As usual, you want to get the seasonal story started as soon as possible, either getting that complete or having it kind of functional active while doing the other content. I expect this simple Iron Wolf story to tie into the new Helltide stuff, so it's likely it'll overlap in a logical way anyway, which means we need to talk about Helltide as it's going to be how we level initially. It's going to be much more effective than any other method. If you're unaware, Helltide's been changed. They're calling it Helltide Reborn, and it's going to be available in World Tiers 1 and 2 finally, where we're all going to begin to level. Compared to the old method for max XP, it's going to be more interesting. There's going to be better loot, reward the important materials that we actually need, and yes, even better XP than the old method. I'm just going to quickly explain that because I've referred to it a couple times. Previously, you'd either do the seasonal story or you do the best XP, which was Domhain Tunnels, aka Dopamine Tunnels, in which you run the opening section over and over due to the mob density and ease of clear. That is boring as hell and rewards basic random mob kill drops, so that's far from ideal, but because it was the best XP to time, people who want that would do do it. On the other hand, most people would just do the new seasonal story and content, getting their seasonal power unlocked and upgraded, following the new story, slower in XP, but a lot more interesting, and everyone has to do it at some point anyway. Instead of these two options, we're now all going to be doing relatively the same thing, and that's Helltide Reborn. Based on testing in the PTR, running the Domheim Tunnel method to reach, say, level 25 would take about an hour, while the new Helltide Reborn method is going to take about 40 minutes. That's a rough 30% increase, and it's way more interesting. It's overall a lot better, so everyone can breathe a sigh of relief on that one. Okay, so once you're ready to grind that XP in the Helltide, what's the best way to do that? Well, you got 55 minutes per Helltide on the hour. So there's a 5-minute bit of downtime before the next Helltide comes up. During those 55 minutes, you want to kill as many mobs, get as many items as you can, complete as many events and grim favors, kill many mini bosses where possible. All of that is to generate as many cinders as possible and then not spend them. Normally you'd spend the cinders to open the locked chests to get specific loot or RNG loot, but when you open them, you get this burst of XP. Why we wait on this is because the higher level you are at the time, the more XP you actually get when opening these chests. So the strat is simply collect as many cinders as possible and then hold them towards the end of the Helltide where we open everything at once. You'll be a higher level because of that when you open them, so you get more XP. To collect cinders effectively, just kill large mob packs between walking to each event that's active. Doing this in a bigger group where there's a lot of players is going to be better. You probably won't have an issue with that because it's going to be where all the player base is going to be. Now, wherever possible, do try to complete grim favors in the area at the same time. That way you can hand them in at the Whispers tree, maybe during the downtime, doubling up as a great bit of extra XP and extra loot, where you even get to choose a piece of gear to roll when you do that, helping you gear up more effectively. I would try to do that in the 5 minutes of downtime if possible, where you'd also manage things like your inventory and other tasks and get back to the next Helltide in time. Now, as I've said, the Helltide has been reborn, so it's updated a bit. Here are the main things to be aware of: the Helltide threat and the accursed ritual, as well as some extra details. For the Helltide threat mechanic, you basically generate threat while you're in there. Killing monsters, opening stuff, doing stuff in the Helltide, you get more threat, and the more threat you have, the more danger and monster-based ambushes are going to happen. In tier 3 and above, we actually start becoming Hellmarked, where there's kind of a frenzy of ambushes of maximum enemy density. And then a Hellborn will spawn, which is a really strong agent of hell. When you do these ambushes, your threat gets reset, and also it gets reset if you die. On the other hand, you have the accursed ritual. We're going to start collecting a new currency called Baneful Hearts, and we use these at the accursed ritual location. To activate it, we're going to need 3 Baneful Hearts, where we'll start to be swarmed by this big dense ambush. Check your map, it'll alert you that one's happening, and they're always going to be worth going to if the mob density is truly that good. Eventually, a special mob called the Blood Maiden shows up with a good reward when we kill her. Also be aware, for the World Tier 1 and 2 version of the Helltide, all the tortured gifts are going to be mystery chests, there won't be any roaming bosses, and they've messed with the density in there a little bit too. But yeah, that's the main details of Helltide Reborn. It's not like a lot to worry about. But yeah, that's the plan. Get things set up, push your Helltide, and reach World Tier 3 as soon as possible. You'll stop your grind at level 15 or 25, depending on your class, to go unlock your class power, be that specialization or whatever, and then return with that new boost in power to level even faster. When you are ready, push into World Tier 3 by completing the Capstone dungeon. And for World Tier 3, that's now going to be level 35 at the latest, because that's when you can equip Sacred Gear. I expect many people to push into World Tier 3 a bit sooner than that, just to get the bonus XP of that tier. But when you are in World Tier 3, it's back to Helltides until level 55 or sooner for the next Capstone and XP increase. I imagine many people will push that around level 40-ish, where it's going to be definitely possible to do that, but there's still going to be plenty of value in waiting to push higher level in World Tier 3 first. The main tip for when you choose to push that Capstone is fire resistance and high enough base armor. It makes Elias, the main boss there, a lot less threatening, making it easier. Obviously, you can also commit to a build a bit better there before you do it by imprinting some aspects, slapping on some gems, maybe for the fire resistance, reroll your stats, temper rings and amulets to make that easier. But whenever you do it, it's up to you. I just do it as soon as you think you can survive the next tier of enemies to actually benefit from the increased XP. Once you're in World Tier 4, it's pushed to level 55 to get your ancestral gear equipped, and continuing the Helltide grind while eventually doing Nightmare dungeons at tiers 20 plus on repeat when you're ready. Be aware you can finally start killing the world bosses now, since they're worth it for ancestral gear, and we can also start properly modding and messing with our gear and pushing on to level 100 by repeating most of the methods we've already been doing. You should also consider the pit during this process, if you're able to effectively push those without too much issue, basically when your gear setup is looking very good. On that note, just be aware of the new season journey rewards. Basically, you just consider your build and the season journey. If they link up with relevant aspect rewards, that's helpful. For example, the season journey for Necromancer heavily focused on minion builds, which are finally incredible. They obviously want you to play the new stuff they've worked hard to improve, so the season journey is how they push people to those builds. If you lean into that, you probably will have a smoother experience transitioning into a functional endgame build. But there you have it. Those are the main details to know and the general strat. In recap, without all the details, make a character, skip the campaign, claim your renown rewards, and activate the seasonal story and get that going as far as you can. It'll likely take you to the new Helltide, where you'll live for most of this. We'll farm that out until World Tier 3, probably around 25+, and in World Tier 3, we push more Helltide again, until at some point we complete the next Capstone and enter World Tier 4, which will be level 55 at the latest. From there, it's more Helltide and eventually Nightmare Dungeons when you're ready for tier 20+ runs, and also doing everything else as usual to level 100. I hope this overview has helped you, but for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.